So sleep's really important for us, and we know that if we don't get enough sleep, it really affects a number of functions in our bodies. So one of the most important things that we're doing when we sleep is repairing the body. So there's a big build-up of byproducts during the day that need to be kind of cleared out and repaired. So sleep is one of the processes by which the body goes around and repairs itself. It's almost like the night team comes in and clears everything up. We also know that sleep is really important for making memories, and for learning in particular. So we've all had the experience where you've really wanted to learn something for an exam and you've been really worrying about how you could actually get that information into your head and to stay there. And one of the clever tricks that people do to try and do this without too much effort is to simply read what you need to learn a few times the night before, something important, and then just trust that the brain's going to deal with it and process all that and embed it into memory overnight without really trying. And so it's as if you just say to your brain, right, these are the things that I want you to learn, and then you turn off and you say, can you do your business? And you wake up in the morning, and for lots of us there's the experience of, oh, hang on, I can suddenly remember this much more easily than I could the night before. So it's important in that processing. And then there's another function that is also really important, which is dreaming. And all of us dream, and what we think some of the functions are of dreaming is to do with processing information that's happened during the day. So events that we've been, or things that have happened, and organising them. And then also processing those emotions. So we've all had the sort of experience of feeling that something's upset us during the day, and then we don't quite know how to handle it sometimes. But when we go to sleep, all that processing happens, and often you wake up in the morning, you think, I feel like I'm dealing with that now. I think I know what to do. So it's very important in that kind of processing. Dreaming might also serve as a way of a kind of dress rehearsal for things. So people who do a lot of sports might be reminded of this, or people who do dancing. If you're trying to learn a dance, or you're trying to think about the way that you're going to play a sport the next day, often you find that the whole of the night before, in your sleep, you seem to have been doing it already. And then what happens when you wake up in the morning, you kind of almost feel like you've done it already, and it kind of feels familiar. So it's almost like a preparatory thing, which would have been really important. There are basically two hormones which are involved in regulating our sleep, and one of them, melatonin, is produced towards the end of the day, and its job is to get us ready for sleep. It helps to cool the body down and to relax it, and that's that sort of nice feeling you get towards the end of the day where you think, I'm starting to feel sleepy, and that's the melatonin starting to rise in your bloodstream and getting you ready to settle down. Melatonin rises towards the end of the day, peaking around sort of midnight to 2 a.m, and then it starts to fall again. At the same time, another hormone comes in called cortisol, which is one of our main stress hormones. And cortisol is the hormone which really wakes you up. So that is at its lowest level in the middle of the night, and then it gradually starts to rise. And in the early morning, it's getting to its highest level, and then you start to feel more awake and you're ready for action. So one of cortisol's job is to provide your body with more energy. It helps you to produce more blood sugar that you're going to need for all the activities that you're going to be doing during the day. So the two work together basically as a kind of mirror image of each other. The other thing that's really important here is this works on a 24-hour cycle. So, and that's imprinted within us. So we're very finely in tune with the night and the day cycle. And melatonin in particular is secreted from the pineal gland, which is the base of the brain, in response to changing light levels. So if we imagine that we're back in prehistoric times, what would happen is as everything gets dark and cold, there isn't much to do. So you find yourself going back into the cave, and snuggling up, and you're ready to go and get a really good night's sleep. As it gets warm in the morning and light, we find ourselves waking up. So if we're in tune with this cycle, we tend to go to sleep when it's dark and wake up when it's dawn. So all of us that have been camping, and I'm sure most of us have experienced that, we often find that we're quite tired earlier on in the evening, tighter than we would have felt normally when we're in our own homes, and we tend to wake up much more easily in the morning, kind of with the dawn, and we sort of think, oh, I should be sleeping in my holiday, but often you can't do it, and it's to do with these light levels. The difference that we have these days in the homes that we live in is that there's a lot of artificial light, so that's from just the usual house lighting, but also from screens and smartphones and TVs, which actually interferes with that. So it puts us slightly out of sync with the natural sleep cycle. Our need for sleep changes according to what life stage we're at. So with newborns, they need an awful lot of sleep. They're asleep for the best part of the day. That need decreases with primary school children. Um, and then teenagers need somewhere between 8 and 10 hours sleep a night to feel healthy. Adults need a bit less, so somewhere between 7 and 9 hours sleep a night to be healthy. And then the elderly tend to sleep less at night, and then they often need a nap during the day. So during the course of our life, the need for sleep and the amount of sleep changes. The other key thing that changes in teenagers is that when you hit puberty, the body clock shifts 2 hours forward. So the natural tendency is for teenagers to want to go to sleep a bit later, but to then correspondingly wake up a bit later as well. The really important thing with sleep with teenagers, though, is there's so much going on in your body at that time. You're going through puberty. You're at an important time at school when you're doing a huge amount of learning and developing. You're learning about friendships. You're learning about relationships. All of the challenges of moving from being a young child towards an adult, all of this huge period of change, and you're physically growing, really mean that in order to do that really successfully and healthily, you need more sleep at that stage to really thrive. So we know that if you don't get enough sleep, there's a number of effects on your body which are fairly immediately apparent. So if you have a really late night and you've only had sort of 4 or 5 hours sleep, you're probably aware of that kind of groggy feeling in the morning. And it becomes much harder to lay down new memories and to learn. We also find that if you're overtired, it's harder to manage your emotions, and you might find that you're on a short fuse, or that you have, or that you're more prone to feeling very low, or crying, or feeling overwhelmed by things. So getting enough sleep is really important to help you kind of manage those emotions that we all have to deal with, but especially so in the teenage years. We also know, because it's important for the regulation of a lot of hormones in the body, it affects things like your skin. So all teenagers will get a bit of acne, but that can be a bit worse if you don't have enough sleep. It'll also affect your energy levels in general. So if you enjoy doing a lot of exercise and sport, that's not as easy if you aren't fully rested. And in fact, a lot of athletes these days, and including at the Guernsey Athletics Club, they have a sleep plan built into their training plan, which has been a very successful thing to do. In the long term, if you don't get enough sleep, it does affect the stress hormones over a long period of time. And what can happen is that you can tend to gain weight, more easily than you would do otherwise. And over a 10-15 year period, it can lead on to conditions like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and diabetes. So one of the most straightforward things you can do to kind of prevent that from happening is simply to get a good night's sleep on a regular basis and really look after that. So if we go back to our caveman analogy or camping analogy, the we need to create the conditions where it gets dark, and we need it cold as well. So the ideal thing to do is to set up your bedroom in a way that enables those conditions. Now, we're quite lucky in Guernsey because we don't have loads of artificial light like they do in the UK. So we have nice dark nights. And one of the key things is to get the room as dark as possible, but to have the window open, for example, so the room is really cold. So you want cold air on your face, and you want to be snuggled up and warm, and that really reproduces the right conditions. So you're thinking about the room having lower light levels in general. So as we go off to sleep, we need to think about, if we're people that like to read before sleep, and that's a nice thing to do and it helps to relax, it's better to read with a paper book than on a device. And the reason for that is that a lot of the devices have blue light in them, and blue light is the type of light which we get first thing in the morning. Um, and your brain interprets that as if it's waking up. So when we're looking at devices, it actually interferes with the production of melatonin and makes it more difficult to get off to sleep. So what we'd recommend is that you don't look at a device for about an hour before bed. Then there's some other tricks that you can use, which are really important, again to do with cooling down of the body. A nice thing to do is to have a hot bath or a shower a couple of hours before bed. Now, you might say that heats the body up. How can that work? Well, it's not the heating up that causes it, it's the cooling effect afterwards as you come out of the bath or shower, which enables the production of melatonin, but it needs to be at least an hour or so beforehand to get that. Another way of getting that effect is to take your exercise in the early evening, but not within 3 hours of bed. So when you're exercising, your body heats up, but it's the cooling effect afterwards. One other thing that can really help is that sleep does seem to be affected by what you eat. So having a small amount of carbohydrates, slow release carbohydrates, mixed with a bit of protein seems to be the ideal thing to eat before you go to sleep. So something like a banana with some peanut butter, or even a small amount of cheese with crackers, or even a small bowl of porridge. All those release the energy very slowly during the night and gets your body ready for sleep.